Alright, looks like the truck's all loaded up, and we're set for a nice drive into the mountains. Why don't we just sit back, listen to the grind of the motor, and enjoy a nice bedtime story. The grandmother had finally rounded up the children and marshaled them through their bedtime routine like a military operation. Brushing teeth, scrubbing hands and faces, changing into PJs, locating stuffed animals that had gotten lost in the excitement of the day. But the going to sleep itself, that was another matter for three small children in beds that were not their own. A summer with their grandparents was going to take some getting used to. A request for a nightlight came from the smallest voice, Lennon, aged 5, who missed his parents and his little light-up starmobile. So the grandmother did her best and found a few tiny tea lights that seemed to do the job. Rune, age 6, asked for another drink of water to delay being left on their own in the strange room, triggering Lennon to pipe up with a matching request. The grandmother brought in 3 little cups of water and waited while sips were made, following the inevitable trips to the bathroom. Zilla, age 7, was used to having her own room and fretted silently about not being able to keep the light on while she read. The grandmother detected the anxiety in the quiet voice and asked, "Would you like to hear a story?" "Yes," all 3 shouted. The grandmother nodded. "Okay, but voices need to stay low because Grandpa's trying to sleep." She heard a derisive snort from the living room where Grandpa was definitely not trying to sleep. She ignored it, keeping her own voice soft and low in the darkened room, and she began. Once, not so long ago, there were 3 animals who were the best of friends. I'm wondering if you know what kind of animals they were. An owl, Zilla responded immediately. She loved owls, collecting them, studying them, and wore owl print PJs. A bear, Rune answered almost as quickly. She loved bears, and had a well-loved stuffed bear she clutched to her at her side at the very moment. After a span of deep thought, the smallest voice answered, an eagle. And quite right you all are too. That's exactly what the animal friends were. They lived deep in the woods and had many adventures together. They took long hikes and picnics where they dined on seed cakes and honey. And s'mores, Lennon inserted. Of course, though s'mores were after the seed cakes and honey. They would explore the caves and swim in the rivers and travel, Rune suggested. Exactly, but not in the way you think. Oh no, not at all. That's where our story starts. One day, on their hike, Eagle flew extra high into the sky and with his eagle eyes spotted something most unusual in a clearing in the woods at the top of the mountain. It was shiny and round and not natural at all, so the 3 friends hiked to the mountain. Well, Bear hiked. Owl and Eagle mostly flew, but sometimes rode on Bear's back, for she was a very strong bear. It's not fair that she had to carry them, Rune objected. Of course it is. She's their friend, and she knew they would help her too. Like Eagle spotting the round thing, Lennon reminded her. Just so. And in order for us to find out what it was, we need to not interrupt too much, okay? Though it is okay to ask questions because it is always okay to ask questions. They answered silently so as not to interrupt. When they got to the mountain, what they found was a large silver disc, like a sled with strange markings on it. Bear nudged it this way and that with a paw. It spun around, much like a toboggan would, but didn't do anything else. Eagle, whose beak was very hard, gave it a few pecks so it made a ringing noise. Ping, ping, ping. Owl, who was very smart because she read so much, tried to decipher the strange signs. Maybe they were instructions, Zilla volunteered, forgetting not to interrupt. Owl thought it was very likely that the markings explained what the silver sled was, but couldn't figure it out, and after much puzzling, Bear gave up and sat down on the silver sled. And then the most amazing thing happened. The grandmother could hear several indrawn breaths. Rune nervously asked, "What happened?" Bear started to disappear. Owl and Eagle could see right through their strong friend like she was tissue paper. But they were so quick thinking that they each stretched out a wing and grabbed onto Bear to pull her to safety. "Did we all turn into tissue paper?" the smallest voice asked. What happened is that they all disappeared, only they didn't know they disappeared because they could see themselves. It was everything else that had disappeared. The trees, the mountains, the sky, even the smell of the pines and the song of the wind. Instead, where do you think they ended up? Egypt, said Zilla, who had just learned about mummies in school. Dinosaurs, said Lennon, who was 5, and this was the time when children learned to love dinosaurs. India, said Roone, decidedly sleepy. You are each right in your own way. They shot lickety-split through the darkness, a strange wind whooshing all around them. Suddenly, the sled landed with a thump and began to slide downhill. Just like sledding in the winter, only they were sledding down the side of a sand dune. It made a shh sound beneath them. When they came to a stop at the bottom of the dune, the 3 animals blinked around. Particularly Owl, for the sun in this desert was far too bright for her eyes. She thought she might need sunglasses if she was going to be visiting Egypt, Zilla realized. Egypt indeed. While Owl adjusted her eyelids to the glare, Eagle spotted some white pointy things in the distance. They looked like upside-down waffle cones, Eagle reported. Right away, Owl knew where they were. Pyramids, Zilla said confidently. Right. So the 3 animals decided they would explore the pyramids, and they knew they would need the sled to get back home, so they buried it a little in the sand and arranged some sticks and an X to mark the spot. Like pirates, Lennon mumbled. Exactly like pirates, and you'll find out more about pirates later. For now, the 3 headed towards the pyramids and the soft sinking under Bear's paws. They reached the sphinx that guarded the pyramids, like a big, ginormous lion. Nowadays, it doesn't have a nose, but what Owl was quick to notice was, it had a nose, Zilla sang out softly. Quite so, and that's when she knew that they had traveled not only through space, but through time, and ended up a long time ago, before the Sphinx was noseless. The nose knows, you know. The grandmother could hear 2 people breathing heavily, and Zilla's sleepy chuckle. The 3 friends stared up at the enormous pyramids, she continued, which were shining white in the sun. A string of camels carrying building supplies joined them with friendly snorts. The workmen were friendly too, and offered them some tea and ali, which is a flatbread soaked in milk filled with almonds and coconuts. The 3 animals thought this treat was especially delicious. They ate so much that their tummies hurt. So when they settled down for the night by the workmen's fire, feeling very safe and cozy, you know what they did next? There was no answer. The grandmother smiled, more ready to feel safe and cozy in her own bed now that the little ones were asleep. And that is what we'll find out tomorrow night, she finished softly. And that's just what they